Welcome to the West Sports Show. We are brought to you by TABtouch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today. Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. I am joined by the West Australians, Jackson Barrett. How are you, Jacko?
Hello, Q. How are you?
I'm good. We're going to go straight into the wash-up from Fremantle v Collingwood last night. But before we do, let's hear from a few of the fans.
Being a Freo supporter since the day I was born, I've never been more disappointed, honestly. He should be disappointed at the Pies!
All I want to say is flag mantle who?
You get the same old Freo every year between 6 and 12. Promise you a lot, deliver Jack.
Sad mantle.
Even our B team is better than Freo's A team, that's all I gotta say.
Terrible boys, get better!
Freo, you put up a fight for about the first quarter, so thank you so much for what you've done. No stress, we'll see you guys next week for another loss. Thank you.
Come on, Pies!
Better than I expected, to be honest, but...
You see this? I'm over it. Where's the premiership's not coming? I'm over it!
Hot pies, come and get your hot pies.
Collingwood! Yeah, baby!
The Dockers suck! But we love Pat Voss.
If the coach is not gone by next week, honestly, this place will never see me ever again.
Justin Longmuir should be left alone, and it's only a game. You talk about mental health. He's a good guy, he's a good coach, and they'll come through because they're a good team.
Hey, Magpie 25, Nick Dacos, Brownlow, let's go, look it in, back!
Count the boys! Count the boys!
Yeah, I'd love to knock all of them out.
I think we played actually really well and we should be proud of ourselves.
The Dockers, they're a horrible team.
Listen here, John Longmire, we got no system, no structure, no passion. What are we doing?
Bossy MVP!
Collingwood rest their players? Who cares?
We've got to know what the game plan is, because at the moment I think they're a bit confused.
Dudley, 10-year player. Great. Love the bloke.
Freo, we can do better. They can
do better.
We should not have lost.
I'm a West Coast supporter, so I'm glad Freo lost.
Come on, Freo, we'll come back! Get up, boys! Flag Rattle 2026!
Is Longmuir the man? You got to ask
Been
the
a member
question.
for 10
is he
years,
the
I'm
man?
throwing in my membership.
They get the ball, they mark the ball, and they slow it down. They need to move it.
Well, plenty of passion out there, Jack. I wouldn't
It was
mind.
running hot.
I want the players to show that every week. So my concern is we did see it. We saw them have a red hot go against Collingwood, so they get a tick for that.
Yeah.
Okay. What they don't get a tick for is 63 to 34 inside 50s, 12 goals to 15. They won the clearances 44-29, centre clearances plus 12. Jamie Elliott kicked 6, 34 inside 50s. There were 22 scoring shots, and I think there's something like 12, 14 contested marks, well, 14 marks inside 50. Clearly, the system is not working at Fremantle. They looked great in the first quarter when they were taking a mark and just handballing.
Yeah.
And the quick flow play, particularly through the centre corridor, they got 20 points up. What happened was what's Collingwood's, I hate using this term, but their one wood, I'll borrow it from David King, it is pressure. It is elite pressure and tackling and harassment, corralling players into mistakes. As soon as it was applied, they went back into their old habits. They started going back, hang on, no, no one left, there's no one right, there's no one through the corridor, allowing the Collingwood defenders to get back. And what happened? Darcy Moore, Billy Frampton, Darcy Cameron got back. Jeremy Howe, intercept mark. So it was terrible inside 50 football. Effort was great from the previous week. But Jacko, I want to see it next week on the road against GWS because there's not enough passion out on that ground consistently. And I know you've got something to say about that.
It was a bloody frustrating loss. It was a very different loss to the St Kilda loss. That was smashed around contest. St Kilda defended the ground better. This was about efficiency inside 50, which you mentioned there, and we'll break down a little bit further. I never want to get too deep into like player psyche and stuff because I think you can slip into some fingernail deep analysis. But I want to highlight two moments from last night where I just think the Dockers basically need to toughen up. So the first one is Luke Ryan has the ball deep in the pocket in D50. He tries to bite off a 45, turns over the kick. Bobby Hill has a shot at goal. Nick Dacos runs up to him, jumps in his face, big fist pump, and laughs at him. Bobby Hill then misses a pretty elementary shot on goal, 25 metres out, slide angle, kicks it behind. 3 Dockers, including Vice-Captain Caleb Sarong, walk past Nick Dacos, and not one of them puts a palm in his chest and stands up for their mate who's just been ridiculed. Then there was an incident in the late in the third quarter where Cooper Simpson is tackled holding the ball by Bo McCreary. Either holding the ball or it slipped out. It was an effective tackle. And he's pushed Cooper Simpson back into the turf, second-year player. And Pat Voss, who is all about tough guy, big body, big chest, runs around like a big roo, walked straight past it. Just stand up for your mates. Like, I hate doing this like, they just don't want it enough sort of analysis. But they just weren't tough enough. Like, a lot of the defensive efforts, the chases, the tackling efforts, stuff around the contest was highlighted last week. A lot of that was better last night. But just those things, like, that's the difference between premiership sides and teams that are 8 years into a rebuild and treading water.
And let's not forget, Collingwood was coming off a 5-day break, rested for veteran players, which I thought was a brilliant move because you've got, let's be honest, they looked like they'd run out of legs about 10 minutes into the last quarter, Collingwood, probably at three-quarter time. And I know McRae's message to them was, let's do this, we got to fight to the end. He knew they were out of legs. So it was a masterstroke to rest those 4 players. They had 4 sets of fresh legs in there. But their ability to withstand the pressure and just add another layer on, and Fremantle didn't like it. And yes, it was better, much better. It had to be because that was base camp, the St Kilda effort, even below base camp.
Yeah.
But, it's a long way to go.
I think the other thing with resting players is you think about the guys that they brought in. One of them was Ed Allen, who tried his guts out. Mm-hmm. The other one is Oleg Markov, who was the sub.
Didn't get a lot of match time, but looked okay,
is a premiership player that's been rolling around the VFL for 18 months and just, ran his heart out when he did come on. So I think there's always that's the flip side of resting guys as well. We touched on it before, but the efficiency inside 50 for Fremantle is something that needs to be seriously looked at. So they went taller this week. Yep. So Darcy and Jackson, and then all 3 of Tracy, Amos and Voss. Amos spent a little bit of time further up the ground. Tracy had moments where he was taking marks up on the wing. Amos certainly played higher up the ground. But I would have thought, my read on that coming in was that they wanted to have a better aerial presence against those interceptors that you spoke about. So more Cameron, who floats back behind the ball, and Frampton, who's actually starting to really nail that role.
Goalpost down last night.
Yes, he did.
Wobbling around like a bit of spaghetti it was. I thought we were going to have a Lee Matthews moment.
I actually missed that moment, but I did read about it in your analysis. So 11 intercept marks between those 3 guys. Yep. Darcy Moore, there was very rarely body on Darcy Moore. When there was, it was often Luke Jackson floating forward and making a contest. He created a spill that led to I think it might have been that Sam Switkowski goal late, which was a big moment, but it was really the only time we saw it happen. So I think Fremantle's tools are becoming a real issue. Clearly,
so they went smaller in back half.
Yes.
And I like Cooper Simpson's addition,
Yeah. I liked the addition of Cooper Simpson. I think the one thing with Cooper Simpson, and as one former host of this podcast and chief footy writer would say, he can't turn left. And I think that was a bit of an issue in their ball movement going out of the back half. He doesn't have a left boot. Mm-hmm. That was probably the one criticism. And they're still working on his defensive stuff, we know, because he's only moved to halfback in the last month or so. So I liked I liked taking that experiment to the big stage and having a go. He did some good things, but really, Freo, once the heat came on late, Freo's ball movement out of the back half really suffered. It was that Fremantle stuff that we've lamented for 18 months. It was come back off the mark, hit a short lateral kick, get sucked into the long down the line, and the interceptors went to work again. When they were flying in the first 10 minutes, so many handball receives, guys running past, corridor kicks. Collingwood would defend the corridor pretty well, but they burnt so many guys that were running past for handball receives. Cooper Simpson, Michael Frederick were just dashing past, Jordan Clark were dashing past for handballs all day, and they burnt them so many times. Yeah. And the crowd was fed up with it.
Yeah, dish him out. Shout out to Mark Duffield, by the way.
Yes.
A little earlier mention there. 2 concerns on both sides. Sean Darcy, Jardney, he won't be playing for a few weeks by the looks of things. So that is Luke Jackson back into the ruck. Voss will keep his position. Yep. And Lockie Schultz. So my take on that was, he played well, Lockie Schultz too.
He's got,
really that period where he got them back into the game early.
Yeah.
a very impressive game from the little shooter. But that start of the last quarter, the concussion, we've got to help players, save the players from themselves. Now, his, I guess, refusal to be carried off on a stretcher, he wanted to run off, he wanted the HIA, see if he could get back on there. I understand that. He's got a big heart, but we've got to protect him from this. He should have been taken off on a stretcher. Clearly, he wasn't going to play any further part. He didn't have any legs, mate. So what's going to happen if he face plants or something? I didn't like it. It wasn't a good look.
I actually think the first point to that is that play should have stopped.
Absolutely.
And Darcy Moore called for it. Jordan Clark called for it in an interview with Sam Rogers in the West. Play absolutely needed to stop. The play was far too close. And as has been pointed out, opening around, they stopped play for Nick Dacos' cramps behind the ball. We're stopping play for shoelaces coming undone.
It is
at the
Nick
moment.
Dacos, by the way. Yeah.
But that was the first one. Play absolutely had to be stopped, which the players have called for. So I'd say that'd be amended and going forward corrected. But it was pretty confronting stuff when he came off. Absolutely stretch up. But I think stopping the game is the first point, because then you can take a beat and those decisions can be made.
So Fremantle wants a template of how to be in the premiership window. Have a look at Collingwood last night, just in terms of how they the work that goes into pressuring the opposition ball carrier and their ability to set up. And their ability to almost read the turnover down the line, because they have so much faith in their teammates. They are such a good side. I have them very much in my premiership frame now, along with Geelong and along with Brisbane. I think they're the teams now.
Well, you think now, obviously, a full round of footy to play out from here, but they go to the top of the ladder and they leave Victoria twice more for the rest of the year.
They've got 9 games in a row in Melbourne. The poor Loves. No wonder they rested 5. No, well, clearly it was a great move to rest. Well,
no team, there's kind of no excuses for them now. No team is better placed. I want to talk about Darcy as well. So I wrote pre-game when the teams came out that I thought there was an opportunity for Fremantle to have a look at Jackson by himself again. I know he was coming back off his own, he was second week back off his own injury issue, but Darcy had played 4 games straight since coming in. This was the 6-day break off travel. It's an opportunity for them to dress it up as they're managing him, but I think they needed to have a look at Luke Jackson by themselves. Perhaps the prospect of Mason Cox altered that decision. But Darcy, I think Longmuir said last night that it might have happened in a kick, so there's some misfortune in that as well. But I don't think he actually should have played last night. Now he's injured. We don't quite know how serious it is, might miss a couple of weeks. But I think Freo looks significantly better with Luke Jackson in the ruck by himself, and I think these 2 big contracts are starting to become a real issue. And Jackson yesterday, his biggest impact isn't as a forward. He has next to no impact as a forward. His biggest impact last night was marking the ball behind the footy. So you think about what...
Has a fair impact as an extra mid too, I reckon.
He does, but you think about what makes Max Gawn, and Darcy Cameron and prime Brodie Grundy.
Well, you don't even have to look. You know they're behind the footy and they'll take that. Yeah.
So Jackson took multiple intercept marks and contested marks behind the ball.
Down the line.
Whereas he's not impacting really at all as a forward. So for me, I think he just needs to be unleashed in there. And maybe he does have an impact as a forward. There were some edits last week of him kind of getting sucked into the drop of the ball and St Kilda using that space created by him. So I think it's just as a number 1 ruck, because he gets involved in post-clearance chains. He gets involved in defensive work, and I just think that needs to happen for a little bit. So whatever happens with Darcy now, I think Freo must have a look at Jackson as a number 1 ruck with some chop outs from Voss. And I'd say the prospect of Mason Cox might have scared them out of it against Collingwood, and some teams have backup rucks, but you just need to let Voss go in there and have a crack for 15 or 20 minutes again.
Darcy Cameron's some player too, by the way. Geez, no wonder the...
He on Darcy Cameron quickly, has to be the top of West Coast shopping list.
Oh, I think he probably is.
Absolutely has to be the number 1 name on that whiteboard.
Well, he is now that Chad Warner's hanging around for a couple of years, I think. Well, let's talk West Coast Eagles, and we've got a live cross to Mitchell Woodcock at the Perth Airport Qantas Lounge.
Oh, the
Mitch,
Qantas Lounge.
Tell me where you're at. Tell us where you're at. Have you done the smorgasbord yet? Are you at the cheese and biscuit stage? Have you maybe a little aperitif before you get on the flight? Where are you? What have you had?
You guys are making it sound like I'm spoilt here, and I don't get it. But
he's having his cup of tea.
A common man.
But seriously, have you been? What have you?
That joke won't work for the podcast, will it?
Talk us through where are you at? Have you on to the cheese board now, or where is it?
I'm just going to go for the toasty if I'm honest. Okay. You just got to like the ham and cheese toasty, boys.
Good boy. Hey, so look, this is a rare opportunity, I guess, Mitch, because we're talking about a winnable game for the West Coast Eagles. Tell us who got on the plane.
Yeah, guys, this is a really winnable game at the MCG for West Coast. Interestingly, they've taken 2 ruckmen. So Matt Flynn is named in the starting ruck and is gone, but so is Bailey Williams. And they only played 4 times together last year and haven't played together this year. So obviously after what happened with Max Gawn last week, having a career best outing, 35 disposals, 47 hitouts and a goal, they decided to go with the 2 rucks. What that means, though, we didn't see Jack Williams at the airport. So it looks like Jack Williams has made room for Bailey Williams. So he'll play as that forward ruck. And then for the rest of the side, well, we obviously know Bo Allen was out with a suspension, Jeremy McGovern with that concussion. They've taken a few guys over, including Sandy Brock and Harry Edwards, the 2 defenders, and then Tom Gross, who's played predominantly as a midfielder for most of his fledgling career and most of this year. But last week in the Waffle played as a forward, and Andrew McQualter said they're going to try and get him in the side as much as they can. They're a bit worried about playing him in the midfield as a young man, so they're trying to find him in the new position. So it looks like he might play a bit of forward as well, guys. Interestingly, taking 2 key defenders over, obviously lost Jeremy McGovern. Oscar Allen was a bit proppy yesterday at training, and they've taken him over, but I just wonder if he's in a little bit of doubt, and that's why they've taken across Harry Edwards maybe as cover. So teams this afternoon, I expect Harry Edwards to be named as an emergency, but I think he might be there as cover for Oscar Allen.
Hey, I saw Harry Edwards on Tuesday and was less than convinced about him.
Yeah, so he was fine yesterday and looked really good, but obviously they've taken him over now, so they must be confident in his body. He didn't play Waffle at the weekend with an ankle injury, so they've got 3 tall defenders. It's interesting, Richmond don't really have a tall forward line. Tom Lynch obviously is a match up for Oscar Allen if he gets through. And Jonty Fall will look like he'll get Sandy Brock. So, like I said, teams this afternoon confirmed, but I expect Harry Edwards to be named as the emergency and probably cover for Oscar.
Mitch, it was a really good piece that you wrote after chatting to Tom Gross at the Waffle last week. What do you make of this messaging around him needing to add the ability to play as a forward to his game? Because I think a lot of West Coast fans would agree. In his couple of games in that midfield, he was one of their more impressive clearance options, and I think a lot of people would love to see him get more time in there rather than come in and play like a half-forward mix.
Yeah, but I think he's going to Jackson play as a midfielder predominantly throughout his career and even in the next few weeks, but they're trying to fit as much as they can into with these young guys and get them playing in different positions, being versatile. So I can understand that sentiment, but I think they're going to try and ensure that they get AFL experience into him without probably just beating his body down. We saw the likes of Nick Dacos, who's obviously a champion player now, but he started life across halfback. Harry Sheasel has probably gone back to halfback, but, before he went into the midfield, that's where he started life, because it's a little bit easier on these younger bodies. So no doubt Tom Gross is going to be one of their better clearance players in the coming years if he continues in this trajectory. But just for now, he's playing that half-forward mix, probably roll through the midfield a little bit more and gives them a better option. They also do like, at the moment, pushing a high half-forward up to the stoppage to try and even that clearance battle out, because they haven't won a clearance battle all year. So it wouldn't surprise me if he does a bit of that as well.
Harley Reid, Tim Kelly, what protection are we going to see for them this weekend?
Yeah, that's the really interesting one. So Andrew McQualter laid the blame at himself yesterday at his press conference. So basically it was his fault that they didn't give enough help to Harley Reid with the Jack Viney tag at the weekend, which has come under massive criticism all across the country. Anything to do with Harley generally gets a lot of attention. This one, interesting though, it's now being linked to, should he leave or should he not? So look, I wonder what will happen with Richmond though. They don't traditionally, I don't think they're in a position to tag.
No, they'll just back themselves, yeah.
So they're going to go Hopper and Taranto against Kelly Reid.
But there'll be a bit of attention though. They won't hard tag, but there'll definitely be some attention. They'll test that.
I wouldn't actually be shocked if Sam Layla ends up going to Harley too as a bit of a one-on number one versus number one for a bit of fun.
Wouldn't mind seeing that.
It'll rev up a few people in the crowd as well. So it's going to be an interesting day. Captain's run tomorrow will be interesting to see where they line up. They give a little bit of clues as to who's where. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But yeah, if Harley or Tim Kelly does get a tag, you'd expect hopefully a bit more of a response from West Coast.
The one thing West Coast don't have that a lot of other rebuilding sides at the moment have is like a genuine ball hunting, like midfield ball. So they're coming up against Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper this week. There's Luke Davies-Uniacke at North Melbourne. There's Zach Merritt at Essendon when they've been really bad. And West Coast don't really have that. Do you feel like the experience in midfield of Taranto and Hopper, given what we saw last week, Mitch, could be like a real difference in the game?
Well, they do have that midfield ball, Jackson. Unfortunately, Elliot Yeo's just injured. And I think they underestimate as an industry how much they miss him at the moment. But in terms of the team they're putting out there at the moment, yeah, they don't have that. I'd like to see Jack Graham in the midfield a little bit more. Like, he's playing a lot of high half forward, and he was specifically brought over to be that grunt in the midfield, laying a lot of tackles, which is great for the defensive pressure. But I want to see him also get his hands on the footy. You don't tackle as much if you have the ball in your hand, obviously. So I want to see him run through the midfield a bit more. I want to see Baker back at halfback, and I want to see Harley Hutchinson, a bit of Gross, and I want to see Kelly get his straps onto the big wide spaces of MCG. Yeah, Hoff will be an interesting one. He's been named on the wing. Will he play the midfield? Will he play down back? There's all these sort of intrigues. So captain's run tomorrow are going to be really interesting, guys.
Named on the wing. What does it mean these days? Who does it? Parkin used to call them the team and the paper team.
Yeah.
So the paper team being the one they announced, because nothing like what runs out there. It's a big game for Andrew McQualter. So 7 wins from 13 games as caretaker coach. Adam Uze is appointed. So it's Uze v McQualter this week. And while they sort of play it down, but mate, it'll be front of mind for those two, whether they admit it or not. The other one, of course, is Liam Baker and Jack Graham. They played a pre-season game, but this is for premiership points. So there'll be a bit of heat in this game.
Yeah, it was interesting. You say they play it down. Andrew McQualter was actually kind of cheeky yesterday in his response when I asked him about, missing out on that Richmond job and does this give you extra motivation to win this one? And he pretty much admitted that it did. He wants to win every week, but he's got a little bit extra motivation to try and beat Richmond for obvious reasons. And yeah, like you said, Graham and Baker and McQualter, they all came up against Richmond in that pre-season game. But that was match simulation. I think it was 3 quarters in the end, or, it was a really weird game.
There weren't many premiership teammates of those boys on that side that day either.
No, and it was sort of a run around. There was no pressure. It was a weird game. You and I were there quarters, and we found it quite strange at the time. So I don't think that will take anything from that. I think it'll be more this weekend at the MCG. It's not too on-fire teams, obviously, but I still think there'll be a big crowd there. Richmond are well supported, West Coast are well supported in Melbourne, and they'll be expecting to try and get a win. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's close to 30,000 there, and it'll be a bit of intensity.
Oh, they'll be sniffing a win out, Richmond. Don't worry about that. Elijah Hewitt's one player we haven't mentioned, so it's his first appearance at the MCG in what is West Coast's only appearance at the MCG this season. His numbers have been good. We haven't seen the 4 quarters yet, but what we've seen in 1 or 2 or even 3, it's been pretty impressive. We know he's going to be that explosive player out of stoppage. He's going to back himself to be that. That's what he wants to be. Is he far off a 4-quarter performance, do you think?
I don't think he is far off. We know he's coming back from that foot injury that really ruined his last few years, and even his draft year, we know that it was hindered him for a long time. So I think he's getting near peak fitness and that, peak match conditioning. So I'm excited to see what he can do this weekend among a host of players. But yeah, him on the MCG, you get the feeling he's a big game player and that he's a guy that'll really love this stage. So I'm looking forward to it, guys. And look, like you said, it's the only game at the MCG. It's a big occasion for West Coast. You win big games at the MCG if you want to be a premiership team. And this team is well off that right now. But it's a good start for a rebuild if you can go to the G and at least put in a really good performance and hopefully jag 4 points.
Mitch, we better let you go. You can't see, but over your right shoulder, we can see the chef tossing the pancakes there. Apparently the maple syrup's ready for you, mate. So you better go and fill yourself.
Yeah, I'm just going to go make the toasty boys, I reckon. What do you think? Ham and cheese and a bit of chutney?
Look forward to talking and seeing your reports, Mitch, on the Richmond v West Coast game at the MCG on Sunday. Enjoy.
Thanks, lads.
Now, we've got to preview some games. But first, let's get the latest from our good friend at TABtouch, David Short.
Shorty's tips.
Joining me in the studio is David Short from TABtouch. How are you going, Shorty?
Really well, thanks, Josh.
Now, we are recording this on Thursday, so just keep in mind that the prices we talk about are Thursday's prices, even though this is coming out on Friday. Now, we don't often see ruckman, heading into the favouritism for Brownlow medal odds, but who have you got your eye on?
Maxi Gawn for me, running hot there last week. An amazing 47 hit-outs, 35 disposals, 9 clearances and a goal against West Coast. He has been spec'd in. He's still a fair way from favouritism, but that price almost halving from $151 into $81.
And it was a big blow for the Dockers earlier this week.
Certainly was. It was a cruel blow for Hayden Young going down with that hamstring in last week's loss to St Kilda. That's likely to keep him on the sidelines for the majority of the rest of the season. He'll be sorely missed by Freo.
Who's your hot tip for this weekend?
Hot tip, I'm taking a multi with the Hawks, the Cats and the Crows to win. That's paying $2.83, so Hawthorn, Geelong and Adelaide give them strength.
Intriguing matchup with the Eagles and Richmond this weekend, but who is the player you've got your eye on?
Yeah, well, I've gone to that game and I'm heading to Jake Waterman. So I did a bit of sort of look back on last time when these two sides met, and Jake Waterman actually slotted 6 majors. So thinking this is another really good opportunity for him to take charge and kick a bag. He's paying $9 to kick the first goal of the match and $4 to kick 4 goals or more. So go Jakey Waterman this weekend.
Love it. Thanks, Shorty. We'll see you next week.
Cheers, Josh.
Okay, Jacko. We have got we feel like we're halfway through the round. We've had one game.
It just rolls. They roll into each other.
They do. Tonight at the MCG, 5:40 p.m. St Kilda $2.30, Carlton $1.65. They're calling it the Tom De Koning Cup. I'm calling it the Unpredictable Cup because I'm not sure what you get from these two teams on a week-to-week basis. Looks like Filippo will make his season debut. Charlie Curnow just had an incident during the week, a training mishap with a collision with Tom De Koning. So there's some doubt over him with a sore shoulder. But it's an interesting because you've got, let's talk about what lays beneath this game. You've got a $1.7 million per season offer to Tom De Koning. We know that Carlton's offer is over multiple seasons, 7 seasons, but it's going to leave him about $4 million short, maybe more on the table. So he's got a big decision, mate.
Big gap.
We're going to see tonight what impact a ruckman of his stature can have on a game.
He's had massive impacts on games this season, but interesting juxtaposition with Marshall as well, who last week ran Darcy around the ground, and I actually think that's probably the battle in this game that I'm most looking forward to. Looking forward to watching the Pooh again.
Yep.
He had a really good season last year, playing around the ball, brings an extra dynamic to them. I'm actually going to take Carlton. I think a lot of...
For the same reason as me, I think.
Yeah.
MCG, not Marvel.
Yeah, MCG. I like a couple of the ins for them. I like Jack Silvani coming back. I feel better about their back line.
Yep.
With him being able to link up with Wiedering down there. I think Carlton's loss to Adelaide was a blip. I think they were on the build. I think they were moving the ball really well. I think their midfield looks a little bit better. It was kind of all there for Carlton until that Adelaide game, and I'm kind of backing them to get back to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not convinced, but I think both teams, it's hard to get a handle on them. But 4-4 St Kilda, Carlton 3-5 have to win it if they're going to be any chance. So I'm going with the Blues as well. Saturday, 11:20am, MCG, Melbourne 365, Hawthorn $1.28. Big ins for Melbourne, Clayton Oliver, Jacob Van Rooyen, Hawthorn Barassout and Amon in. So Scrimshaw's still going to miss with concussion for one more week. Kalsha Deer's close, may even play. It's going to be interesting to see what Hawthorn looks like with Mitch Lewis when he comes back in about 6 weeks possibly, and Kalsha and Jack, who's having a great year. Melbourne undefeated in its last 9 matches against Hawthorn, 8 wins and 1 draw dating back to the 2018 semi-final. But you feel that if they're going to get one Hawthorn, this is the time. I just think in most metrics they probably match them. Speed of ball movement being the number one, I think. They could get them there. And isn't it great to see Jack Gunston back in the sort of form he's in?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think...
So I'm going the Hawks, by the way.
Yeah, I'll take the Hawks as well. I didn't think last year that we would see Jack Gunston at this level again. No. And between him and a couple of really good Nabior Chol performances, they're basically holding this forward line together. And I think it's kind of...
Well, the small forwards are too.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I think it's kind of footy's what if at the moment is what can Hawthorn look like in the back end of the year with Kalsha Deer, who is a young guy and will be coming off an injury, but just really stiffened them up last year. Gave them a target, and then Mitch Lewis. I mean, we don't really know what a good Hawthorn side looks like with Mitch Lewis. So
not really.
That's an intrigue later in the year.
I think you're right. You've got your top 3, and then you've got the rest. And I think Hawthorn sits in the rest. We just don't know.
Yeah, I feel they're at the top of they're leading the peloton.
Yeah, I think so. But I think we're both confident in picking them this weekend. But that recent history is really interesting. Saturday, 2:15 p.m, Essendon $2.35, Sydney Swans $1.60. Another game I found it really I wrestled with, and I'm picking Sydney, but really tenuously. Payton's a good in. Melican's obviously out with that 3-week suspension. Possible debuts for two Essendon players. Forward Archer Wicks, and key defender Lewis Hayes. Jai Corbell, Dylan Shield, Sardell Howie. They're big ins for them. We saw Harry Jones go out with that ankle last week, Ridley and Gresham. So I'm going to pick the Swans, Marvel Stadium. I'm just not, I'm obviously not sold on Essendon, but who've had a few wins recently. But for me, Sydney, just more upside at the moment. Essendon 2 debutants, I'm a bit loath to pick a side under those circumstances.
Yeah, I'll take Sydney as well. I think they tend to be a little bit wayward at Marvel from memory, but I think Ridley's a significant out for Essendon, and I just don't think they can have Zach Merritt pull them back into games like he did last week.
Well, he's been doing
on top of games like they did last
all
week.
year.
Yeah, I'll take Sydney. Upward trajectory from Chad Warner as well, who won the Brett Kirk medal last week.
Since the contract re-signing.
So contract's out of the way.
Weight of the world off his shoulders.
I actually think he could still put together a really, really nice season. So I'm going to take the Swans with an eye on Chad.
I've got Zach Merritt as the All-Australian captain at the moment.
So do I.
That's how good his season has been, I reckon. And Essendon been outscored by 105 points in the time on period of quarters, ranked 17th. So Sydney will be looking at that, thinking we can steal a few in red time if possible. Saturday, 5:30 p.m. at TIO Stadium. Gold Coast $1.90. The Western Bulldogs $1.90. That's at 5:35 p.m. I'm picking the Suns here, and not only because
can't tip against them in Darwin.
No. It is a night game in Darwin, and you talk about the opposition teams going. And I say this because they're the informed team of the competition right now. Is the Western Bulldogs? They're playing so well, but it's a completely different game of football. The ball is slippery. They talk about the ball drop being completely different to a normal game of football, and you get a bit spooked by it.
Yeah.
So they've got all that to contend with the Dogs, and the Suns are sort of conditioned to it. So I think we pencil them in for games, all home games, and this particular fixture, don't we?
Yeah, they can have this one. And the big in for the Gold Coast is Ben Long, who missed last week, but he's actually a top 10 rated player in the competition.
Yeah, that's fair.
By Champion Data this season. So
he's
that's
crept up on us, Ben Long.
Well.
He's more important than you think, and you watch him live and you see what he does and what he gives to that team.
I think the Suns win. I don't think it'll change the way I feel about the Bulldogs. I'm a big fan, but I just think Gold Coast.
No Treloar too with a calf injury, which is he's only just got back in there. Hopefully it's not a long-term one. You get the feeling Long is the sort of player that Damien Hardwick loves because he plays absolutely on the edge.
Damien Hardwick turned 6 blokes like Ben Long into premiership heroes, didn't he?
Yeah,
Castagna, Higgins, Lambert, all sorts of blokes like Ben Long he has turned into premiership players.
Adelaide Oval, Saturday, 6:10 p.m. One of the games we played twice, but we love the showdown. Port Adelaide $2.60, Adelaide Crows $1.50. Mitch Hinge in for Adelaide, Brodie Smith out. Of course, the big out for Port Adelaide is Willie Rioli.
Yep.
Where did you sit with that before we give our tips? I actually think he was lucky to get a week.
Yeah, I think he was lucky to get a week. I think the AFL clearly caught on the hop. And
it was dreadful from the AFL.
And they won't be happy with the optics
messy.
of 2 previous incidents that were slipped under the radar with clubs sort of dealing with them themselves. I think Willie has a problem with handling the way he feels about wins and losses.
I think Willie should get off social media and stop texting
I think absolutely Willie should get off social media. To be honest, without being over the top, I fear for Willie's career, to be honest, at this point, because a footballer who can't handle the emotions, the ups and downs of professional sport isn't well placed to succeed and keep himself on track. So Port Adelaide's done a lot of work in supporting him.
They have.
He's the benchmark small forward in the competition for me, and if he wasn't, I don't think he'd be on a list anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, there are 2 components to this. Willie's not helping himself.
Yeah.
And I thought the message after the Hawthorn game that included the word hate. Hate's a very strong word, and you're sort of inviting a pile-on. Now, I'm not condoning it because it was an awful, horrendous pile-on. We hate seeing that. There is no place for it.
Yeah.
And those people should be ashamed of themselves. But Willie, you can sort of stop it at the chase if you've cut it at the pass. If you just get off social media. We want to see you at your best because your best is bloody really good and really entertaining football, and that's what we want to see. This stuff's nonsense.
Don't underestimate his out this week. That's a significant loss.
I won't. He's so important to that forward line, which is why I'm picking the Crows. I have more faith in them now. It's a home game. It's a home game for Port, actually, but they're playing at the home venue. So love most things about Adelaide. I think we want to see a bit more away, as in playing in the East Coast and over here.
Yeah.
But I think they play finals.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they win this game, and I don't think Port's really a bit too inconsistent over 4 quarters.
I love Adelaide's backline and what they're doing down there, and the ability for Jordan Butts to come in.
Worrell or McElhenney? Who's your favourite?
Oh,
I'm going McElhenney.
McElhenney's my sort of guy. I think. Yeah. I'll take McElhenney.
Yeah.
But Worrell in the Weddle mode has added an extra element to that down there as well. And Hinge, who comes back in, he had a wayward game a couple of weeks ago by foot. It might have been the GWS game in tricky conditions. But he's had a really good season as well.
Decent forward line too, the Adelaide Crows, by the
Crash
way, and midfield. Well, Port may have the best midfield in the comp on their day, but we don't see it often enough. We've spoken about the Sunday morning Mother's Day. By the way, happy Mother's Day in advance to all the mothers out there. We love you all. You do a great job. So hopefully,
and what a treat for them, Richmond and West Coast.
Well, first up, 11:10 a.m. We've spoken about this game already, so we'll just roll through some tips. Richmond $1.52, Eagles $2.55. I'm picking Richmond.
I'll take them too.
And you too? Yeah, just too much. I think they showed a little bit. I mean, interesting, the last 2 weeks they've played Hawthorn and West Coast.
Yeah.
And I think you've sort of been very similar outcomes for both teams.
But for me, it's the reasons that we spoke about with Mitch. There are still match winners in their midfield and in their forward line.
Yep.
West Coast just don't have enough guys who know how to win.
So here's a game that, it's at GMHBA, so it may not be that interesting given how the Giants are going. But Sunday, 1:20 p.m, Geelong $1.42, the Giants $2.85. Reece Stanley, hamstring, and no Tom Stewart still. Lawson Humphrey's out too with concussion, which is a big out for them. I'm a big rap for our WA boy. He's in All-Australian form and just a great decision maker and uses the ball well. Has that awkward kicking style too, but
he does.
I love him.
People talk about Josh Draper at Freo being a little bit Michael Johnson.
Yeah.
Lawson Humphrey's a bit Michael Johnson.
He's
to me
more
as well.
Michael Johnson than
mover.
Michael Johnson, and he's equally a smooth mover. Giants sort of balances itself out, really. Toby Bedford in, Darcy Jones out. So 2 very good players.
Sorry, Bedford out.
Bedford in, isn't it?
I think Bedford was the late out.
Okay.
News this morning.
So both out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was confirmed this morning.
So we'll cancel that.
You presume Bedford, potentially a job on someone, and Darcy Jones is just, he's an elite runner, another WA boy, but he's just involved in so many important chains, whether or not he's kicking goals. So that's a significant out as well. I'll take Geelong relatively comfortably given the GMHBA factor.
The dimensions and the fact it's
I think GWS are probably treading water a little bit as well. And I also think good luck stopping Patrick Dangerfield. They're pretty well equipped, but his just ability to get separation on guys, and the fact that I don't think your entries have to be perfect for Patrick Dangerfield to make it work down there. I think he's going to be a real handful for Taylor and Buckley, as much as they're, 2 of the best key back.
He's a good matchup for them because he's a crash and bash, different type of a forward.
Yeah,
so I think
hard.
I agree. For me, GWS, who I had my premiership favourite early in the season, I still think they'll play finals. They're way off it at the moment. For me, it's Brent Daniels is the missing piece there. Once he comes into that forward line, he's the real conduit between. He's the mid-forward conduit. We know Toby Green's great at that as well, but Brent Daniels just adds that little bit of layer of class there. So they're really missing him. And when he comes back into that side, I'll have a lot more confidence about them. I'm also picking Geelong. The last game, you're right, it doesn't look on paper a great Mother's Day feast, does it? North Melbourne, this is down at Ninja Stadium in Hobart. North Melbourne will have to do a ninja act, I think, to get out of this. $6. Brisbane Lions, $1.13. Jackson Archer, bad luck for him. I like the cut of his jib, Jackson. I like the way he plays footy. He's out for a bit of a stint with a hammy. Sam Day out for 6 weeks too. I know, he's a veteran. He was called in when Joe Danaher retired, but he just does a lot for their structure, I think. So he will be missed.
I think that'll put some of those Joe Danaher preseason question marks will come back on Brisbane if they don't keep winning without Sam Day. I'm sure clearly they'll handle this one, but looking forward to that kind of 2-month patch without him. They'll have to keep winning, otherwise there'll be some issues there.
Good in for them. One of my favourite players, Kai Lohman. He's a very, very good electric player, so we expect Brisbane to get the job done. Jacko, favourite time of the week, Thirsty Camel mailbag. This week's special, Brookvale Union ginger beer 6-packs, get 2 for $52. This week we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher thanks to our great friends at Thirsty Camel. I know you frequent the Thirsty Camel bottle shops all the time. Get your questions in for next week to TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email as we'll send you a digital voucher if you're a weekly winner. What's your go-to? You're driving through a Thirsty Camel.
I'm a single fin man.
You just go the standard 6-pack single fin?
Straight up and down single fin.
Okay. I could be any sort of white wine and maybe a little 6-packer. Probably Carlton Draft or Black Duck.
Have you had the Brookvales?
No, I'm a Black Duck or Carlton man. I'm a simple man with simple tastes. I don't like any of your fancy boutique beers, mate.
Oh, okay.
But I like everything Thirsty Camel offers up, mate. Okay. G'day, Quarters and Cod and Mitch, and I'll add Jackson to that.
Oh.
I know you say to keep the emails short, but you're not getting many. Oh, that's very nice. No, we need more emails at the moment. We got a few this week, so I doubled mine in length. Thanks for reading it out. Just to pick up on Craig's discussion about West Coast and their priority pick chances. I'm a West Coast supporter and agree we don't necessarily need a priority pick, but some things have happened that have been out of our control. 3 players retired due to concussion, Shepherd's Venables, a first-round draft pick, and Luke Edwards. We've had small forward Jared Cameron retire, falling out of love with the game. Also been a bit shafted in the draft when we've been poor. The heavily compromised nature of the draft means our second pick in the last few years has been in the 30s, and prior to last year, we haven't been allowed access to academy players. I won't read the whole thing out. Those that suggest we should trade Harley and get multiple picks in the first round this year have no idea those picks in this particular draft are going to be heavily compromised. So do you give them an out at all?
Just on that last point, they are going to be heavily compromised, but drafts beyond this are going to be as compromised as they come once
with
Tasmania
coming in.
Yeah, so you do need to brace for that as well. I don't think they're not going to get a priority pick. I don't think they've officially asked for it. I think they're kind of weighing up asking for it. But Laura Kane, in an interview with COD, has kind of poo-pooed the idea of that happening. I don't think they should be given an out just yet. I just think they've had misses in the draft, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of priority picks.
I'm not either.
Full stop. I think you look at I think Gold Coast and North Melbourne, who are the last 2 sides to have been given them, are just going to end up with way too many top 10 picks. I think West Coast need to find their own way at bringing in top 10 picks. Clearly, the compensation for Oscar Allen is going to be one of those ways. Perhaps it's Harley. They've got a big decision to make there over the next 18 months.
So you get to bam 1 for Oscar. It's pick 2. Let's call it pick 2 at the moment, or 3, depending on where they finish. You get Harley decides to part ways with the club, and let's be honest, his value will never be greater than it is at the end of this season.
Yeah.
You get to, say, 2 first rounders, maybe a future second. You've all of a sudden, with your own pick 1, Hawthorn's pick 1, wherever that is, all of a sudden you've got a bit of a Richmond draft hand here. Yep. So you go to the draft and you can give yourself, I think supporters can put up with the pain if they can see a light. And I think Richmond supporters, there's nothing like a premiership itself, but I think the next closest thing is a really good hand at the draft. And I think they had the best hand I've seen probably since the days of GWS and Gold Coast. So
yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think that, that they can really sell this if they get it right. Now, I'm not suggesting Harley does leave, but it's looking more likely that there's some arrangement. And if they can get the right hand, I think this could work definitely in West Coast favour.
I was actually at Richmond's win over the Gold Coast at Marvel, and there's just a far more positive vibe about what's happening at that club than at West Coast because of that reason. It's everything that Luke Traynor does is a positive. Everything that Sam Lawler does is a positive. There's just more goodwill around it. To be
Nothing
honest.
else going on that night, mate? Richmond Gold Coast?
Yeah, I've got nothing to say there. I went to Richmond Gold
No,
Coast.
supporting the code, it's great, mate. I would go to Richmond Gold Coast as well. I might find something else to do in Melbourne, though, my hometown, maybe some music or something. But anyway, g'day Quarters, Splinters and or Barra. Jackson, as an unimpressed rider, I will point out some of these were sent prior to last night's game. So just unimpressed rider of the league's worst roller coaster. I'm simply fed up with FIFO Mantle. I might have called him Freo FIFO last night. The team that is currently working on a week-on, week-off roster. I don't care if they do roll Collingwood this week. Sustained performance and effort is needed to convince me that this year is not going to be another waste of my purple hopes. I'm now of the belief that JL is not the man for Freo and that the likes of Horst Longmire or Kenny Hinkley would be more capable of holding the team to a high standard and account. Back in correspondence and keen for your thoughts. The Pilbara Peanut, yes. Hello, Jared, the Pilbara Peanut, a regular contributor. Look, I'll tell you where I think. If they don't play finals, they need a new coach. But I am not one for sacking a coach mid-season. You've got to see the year out. There's quite a lot of the season to go.
Yeah.
Fremantle can really make a really good case of this season still. It's just that they're not really – we've addressed the areas of concern earlier. They're not going to – I mean, it's not really something you can change overnight. You can't manufacture nastiness either.
Yeah.
They need a bit of that.
To be honest, I think that's probably your email of the week. It's certainly my vote anyway, because that was where my sentiment was at before last night's game. Like, Freo has this knack of losing badly and getting their tail ups and going, people have said mean things about us, and getting all fired up and having a win and having a red hot crack. And last night that lasted 20 minutes. And that's kind of where my head was at going into last night. Like, do I really care? Like, if they win, it'd be great, but do I care about what it means for the future?
After they got to the 20 point and then there was a run of 4 goals, I think.
Yeah.
Did you think this game, we won't win this game now? Or Freo won't win this game now?
Yeah, I was pretty confident it was done once they let it quarter time.
Again, Paul, we couldn't read out your mail last night because we wanted to get the wash up of the game. Yeah. Hi, guys. I was a huge JL fan, but I changed my mind after Friday's game. Clearly talked about the St Kilda game last week. So over the weekend, I was listening to all the media about him and how they analysed the game, and basically they were saying it was the players who didn't turn up. So was it the players or our game style? It seems we're a slow-moving team. Anyway, I'll be going tonight to support my team, and I hope we get 50,000 plus to the show to show the club our support. Well, they did get
got close.
Good crowd last night, so I'll give them that, and good on you. Keep turning up, please. I think it's a combination of both, really, don't you?
I think a lot of the pieces are there for Fremantle.
They've got the list to play finals, no question.
And they talk about age and experience, and I know where you stand on this, but they've brought in Jackson, they've brought in Bolton,
Bolton was much better in that
midfield. That, right?
He was good in the midfield.
Well, Bolton's actually, we had a good champion data stat on Bolton that I meant to bring up when we were talking about Freo, because there were a few positives out of Freo, with that Bolton's the number 1 rated midfielder in the competition for the time he spends in the midfield. When he's forward, he's 105th rated forward. He had a team high 9 clearances last night and brought a completely different element to particularly their centre bounce stuff. So I think the players are there. I think I think we've spoken about it, but the heat comes on and the game slows down, and they find it really hard to kick through zones. Basically,
he's your one genuine midfielder who can create something out of nothing. So I like him. I like him there. Last one. This one from Andrew. Hey, Quarters. The Eagles have been granted their perennial wish to play games at the MCG. With this game on Mother's Day against the lowly Tigers, has the AFL made any contingency plans to lock the gates to keep the crowd in? I don't think.
Good way to finish.
I don't think you'll need to. So, okay.
Richmond fans do turn up.
We agree, Jared. Pilbara Peanut. You are this week's winner. of the Thirsty Camel $50 digital voucher. You have been listening to the West Sports Show. We have been brought to you by TABtouch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today. Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Thank you, Jacko. Did you pick the Pies last night or Freo?
I picked the Pies.
I picked Collingwood too, so we've got one against the card. I
Yeah.
think there's not too many of us, so well done. Thanks for your contribution. Look forward to talking to you in the near future.
Thanks, mate. See you next time.